Hi, introduction to decimals. We're going to use some decimal grids here to solve this problem. So I'm going to do just part of this for you and ask you to do the rest. So this problem is saying let's take these four decimals and put them in the correct order, right? So we're going to do that here at the bottom. So we have inequalities here. So we're going to write down the correct decimal in the correct location. And then we're going to kind of model what it should look like on the decimal grid, and then we'll talk about its connection to fractions, right? How do we write it as a fraction, and then maybe actually write it down using place value. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do the first one. So this one right here. So every day people will read this as 0.245. So we're going to read this as 245 thousandths, right? So what that really means is that if we look down here, it's really going to be 245 of these pieces. And we're not going to like shade them all one at a time. We have some quick ways that we can do this. So I'm going to take that number and figure it out where it goes so I know. So that number is going to go here. So I'll put it there. So I just have to figure these out, right? So there's going to be one smaller and then two that are going to be larger. And then we're just going to shade all this in. All right, so if we just look at this, the 2 here indicates 2/10. So I'm going to have to rotate this here. So I'm going to shade 2 of these. All right, so you can see that. So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do here, is to just build this number from scratch. So here, we're right here, right? So we have the 2/10. So now, if you want to do this in a cumulative fashion, you can either shade like 4 of these if you'd like to, or you could include this, right, in the second model. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take these two, right, from the above, and now I'm going to grab 4 of those. So now if you look at this, we could write 0.24. So the important thing to emphasize is that this still has the 2/10, right? Those 2 bars are filled in, but then it also has 4 hundredths in it. Or you could say, right, a different way is to say it actually has 24 of these, right? So now we're very, very close to modeling this number. The last thing we want to do is to include 5 of the really, really small pieces, right? And again, I'll continue doing this in a cumulative way. So I'm going to go to the bottom one here. This is a little tough on the eyes. So I'm going to grab 2 of these bars. And then I'm going to grab 4 of these. Just like that. And then the new part is I want to grab 5 more. 5 more of the really small ones. So I think I did all that right. Just like that. So now this has all of what we have shaded here, but in addition it has 5 more of these little pieces. And so that's a model of the number. So this really shows how you can interpret this in terms of the 10th bars, the hundredths, or you can use the thousandths. But this is a full model of what this number looks like. So I hope that part makes sense. So you can, like I said, you can do this in a variety of different ways. Some of these problems you're going to find that you're only going to need, for example, 1 of the grids or possibly 2 of the grids, right, to show the number. Okay, so the last couple of parts talk about this using equivalent sized pieces, right, or common denominators. So I want to take a second to write that. So you could do this here at the bottom if you wanted to. So if you're talking about equal sized pieces, you really want to be using this one here. So this means 245 thousandths. So this would be our answer to part B, right? So this is the decimal representation, and this is what we talked about the first 6 weeks of class, right? This is what it looks like as a fraction. right? And the last part is place value, right? Let's just talk about the meaning of the 2 and the 4 and the 5, right? Just so that we don't lose a sense of what all of that stuff means. So I'll do this here at the very bottom. So you could write this at the bottom of the sheet. So I'll just say the 2, right? This is what it means, right? So we're talking about 2/10. And then the 4, that's a hard one to spell, right? 4/100ths. And then the 5 is this really small pieces. So the 5s, we're talking about 5,000ths. So that's what I want you to do for each one. Put the correct decimal representation in the correct order, right? So that that this compound inequality makes sense, and just get a sense of how do you model it in a picture, how do you write down the decimal, how do you write down the fraction, and what do all these numbers actually mean.